When my wife offered to let me control the TV remote, I grabbed the kids and ran. My wife does not share control of anything. Not the thermostat, not the grocery list, not what we watch on television. In 9 years of marriage, I have never once chosen a show. So when she held out the remote with that too bright smile and said, "Here, you pick something tonight," my whole body went cold. Her phone was face down on the coffee table. She never puts it face down. I didn't take the remote. I just stared at her, and that's when I noticed her hands were trembling. Something was very wrong. I told her I needed to check on the kids and walked upstairs with my heart slamming against my ribs. Our daughter Nadia was in her room, and when I sat on her bed, she looked at me with eyes that were too careful for a 7-year-old. I asked if anything was wrong. She glanced at the door and whispered, "Mommy said we're going on a trip soon. Just me and Jalen. She said it's a surprise and we can't tell you." My blood turned to ice. I asked when this trip was happening. Nadia shrugged. "She's been packing a bag in the garage. I saw it when I got my bike." I went to Jalen's room next. He was only 5, young enough to tell me everything without knowing he shouldn't. He said a nice man came to the house last week when I was at work. The man gave him candy and told him to say goodbye to Daddy's house because they were going somewhere better. I felt my stomach drop through the floor. I asked what the man looked like, and Jalen said he was tall with gray hair and talked funny. I checked my watch. It was 6:52 in the evening. My wife was downstairs waiting for me to come back and watch television like nothing was happening. I made a decision that felt insane and completely rational at the same time. I grabbed my wallet, my keys, and threw clothes for all 3 of us into a duffel bag. I got both kids into their jackets and led them toward the back staircase. We were almost to the mudroom when I heard her voice behind us. She wasn't smiling anymore. "Where do you think you're going?" I told her we were taking a drive. She stepped closer, blocking the door. "You're not taking my children anywhere." I said they were our children, and moved toward the door anyway. She grabbed Nadia's arm and my daughter started crying. I stepped between them and said something I'd never said in 9 years together. "Back off." She looked at me like I'd slapped her, and in that moment of shock, I pulled the kids through the door. I drove straight to my brother's house 40 minutes north. The next morning, I called a family lawyer who told me to go to the police station and request a civil standby to retrieve personal belongings. Detective Raymond Okonkwo, 19 years on the force, listened to my story and decided to come along himself. We arrived at the house at 11:15 a.m. In the garage, hidden behind moving boxes, I found exactly what Nadia had described: a packed duffel bag, 3 passports, $8,000 in cash, and an envelope containing one-way plane tickets to Sao Paulo, Brazil. The departure date was this Thursday. There was also a folder with apartment listings in Rio and a letter from a Brazilian attorney discussing how difficult it would be for an American father to recover children taken overseas. But the worst thing I found was a psychological evaluation claiming I was paranoid and potentially dangerous. It was signed by a Dr. Nathaniel Kerrigan. Detective Okonkwo ran the name. No such doctor existed anywhere in the country. The emergency custody hearing happened the next morning. My lawyer, Claudia Vance, presented everything: the tickets, the fake evaluation, the foreign attorney's letter, the cash. She had proof that the psychological evaluation came from an overseas document fabrication service, complete with payment receipts traced to my wife's secret bank account. When the judge asked my wife directly if she had paid for a fake medical document, she cracked. She said I didn't deserve those children. She said she'd been planning this for a year because I never appreciated anything she did. She said the kids would be better off in Brazil, away from my influence. The judge listened to every word with barely concealed disgust. The ruling came at 2:15 p.m. Full temporary custody granted to me. My wife was ordered to surrender her passport and prohibited from unsupervised contact with both children. The district attorney filed charges for fraud, attempted parental kidnapping, and fabrication of legal documents. The man who visited my house turned out to be a relocation specialist who helped people disappear for a fee. He was arrested 3 weeks later in another state. My wife got 5 years probation and lost everything she spent years building. I kept the kids. Sometimes Nadia asks why we ran that night, and I tell her Daddy noticed something strange and decided to be extra safe. She nods seriously, then asks if we can watch a movie. I hand her the remote and tell her to pick whatever she wants.